diary, where to start? I think I suffer from a troubled heart. Let me share my theories. They come in three parts. First of all, I doubt myself. Second one is that I tend to dwell. Third is up lonely as hell. What a mess. I'm sorry it took me all this time to confess my mental crimes, but I think I'm ready now, so let me introduce you to my mind. Me, my insecurities. Let's count it 1, 2, 3. Not smart, not pretty like a star, not weak, not tough, not nearly good enough. Me, my insecurities. Let's count it 1, 2, 3. Not smart, not pretty like a dog, not sleek, not rough, not nearly good enough. Mirror, 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 mirror on the wall. I get anxious when I alcohol. Can't you see my agony? Or don't you care at all? All they ever say is to love yourself, but is it wrong to lack some confidence? I know they can feel it too. We all do. I'm sorry it took me all this time to confess my mental crimes, but I think I'm ready now, so let me introduce you to my mind. Me, my insecurities. Let's count it 1, 2, 3. Not smart, not pretty like a star, not weak, not tough, not nearly good enough. Me, my insecurities. Let's count it 1, 2, 3. Not small, not skinny like a dog, not sleek, not rough, not nearly good enough. Don't know where to start. It's like they're crawling down beneath under my skin. Seems like all they want, feed off my confidence again, but I won't let them win. My insecurities. Let's count it 1, 2, 3. Not smart, not pretty like a star, not weak, not tough, not nearly good enough. Me, my insecurities. Let's count it 1, 2, 3. Not smart, not skinny like a dog, not sleek, not rough, not nearly good enough.
Good morning, Kensington. We're so glad you're here with us today as we begin our new series, Broken and Beautiful. I'm Shauna Schwaniger, a Central Teaching Pastor, and I want to personally invite you to these upcoming opportunities here at Kensington. First, Thanksgiving baskets. Would you join me in this favorite tradition? Kensington has been distributing Thanksgiving baskets to local families for 27 years. The impact is huge, and so are the smiles. Now, last year, in the midst of the pandemic, we decided to provide gift cards as a main dish of the baskets so that people could purchase their favorite foods and create a feast fit for their own families. The recipients were so excited, we're doing the same this year. There are 2 ways you can participate: donate and deliver. Every $50 donation fills a basket, and then we hand deliver the baskets to a local family on Saturday, November 20th. Sign up early to deliver. Spaces always fill up quickly, which says what about this community? That you are eager and excited to love your neighbors and be the hands and feet of Jesus. I love it. So find out more about Thanksgiving baskets at kensingtonchurch.org/Thanksgiving. And if Kensington is your home church, baskets are also available to you if you need one. Just call our main office at 248-786-0600. The other invitation I have for you is baptisms. We have baptisms at all of our campuses on Sunday, November 21st, and that's just a few weeks away. Baptism is something we get really excited about around here. It's a step of faith, and a profound moment of surrender to Jesus. We rise up out of the water with a sense that new life that we have in Jesus. I have been a part of many baptisms over the years, and I love hearing the personal stories about each person's faith journey. So if you feel the tug to be baptized as an outward sign of what God is doing in your heart, find out more and register at kensingtonchurch.org/baptism. Okay, now back to our service. We're in the first week of our series, Broken and Beautiful. And I think this whole idea of God using our brokenness is so encouraging and incredible. In God's loving hands, our broken pieces can not just be mended, but made new. And the final result is even more beautiful than before. I believe God has something special to show us today about who He is and how He works in our lives. Thanks for joining us.
Well, good morning. So glad that you're here with us today in this broken down auditorium. I'm going to say something about that in just a moment. And for those of you that are online, we're so glad that you've come to Kensington Church today. So what's going on in this room right now? Some of you are ticked off because your favorite seat is there or there. And so you're being challenged right away. You're in church, but you got a little bit of an attitude. I do, because my seat's normally right over there, and I'm sitting right next to Terry today. But we had the wonderful opportunity last week and into this week to partner with the Department of Health and Human Services. And you can see, this is what it looked like yesterday. We had over 900 people the first 4 hours on Saturday and 350 workers in this room helping people who have gone through a difficult time this summer because of the flooding, all that rain we got, all the houses that were destroyed, resources lost. So this building has become the gathering place for, we think, will be up to 10,000 people, men and women and families, that are coming into our building to get assistance and help. And this is our way to love on them. And one of the side benefits of this, because we have wonderful staff and volunteers that are here just to greet, hand a cup of coffee, a bottle of water, make this experience great. They're saying, what is this place? And look at that big stage, and what do you guys do here? And so we believe it's also a way to invite people to consider coming into our community. So thank you for being inconvenienced this morning. Next week, your chairs will be back, and we'll see you in your normal place. I kind of like it, though, because I can kind of focus today when I teach and not be all over the place. We don't want to forget you back on the risers either. So anyhow, I have a couple really cool things to share with you today. These are events that are coming up. The first one is, if you have a fourth or fifth grader, or you know someone who does, we have an event called Ignite 45. And they're going to go to basically the airtime is a trampoline park. I never even heard of such a thing. I get sick to my stomach actually thinking about it. But imagine the kids spend a day there bouncing around, and then when they get home, they go to bed right away because they're exhausted. So you can see how to sign up at our website, Ignite 45. That would be a great event for them coming this Friday. The other thing this Friday that I'm super, super excited about is we have a chance right here on this stage to host Mitch Albom, who is one of my favorite authors. I've read I think all of his books. And he had a book that came out last week, November 3rd, called The Stranger in the Lifeboat. And I was able to get an advanced copy of it and read it. And it's a fiction story about some people that are trapped out in the middle of the ocean in a lifeboat. And the question is, there's a 10th person or 11th person they pull out of the water a few days later. And the question is this God? Is this the Lord in the boat with us? It's an amazing story. And the reason why I want Mitch here is that he reflects so much of our own values. He has started 7 nonprofits in the city of Detroit that reach the marginalized. He has an orphanage he's built in Haiti. He has such an open, generous heart. And this book is going to do a lot of good. So we encourage you to come back. You can buy a book before. You can buy one here. Listen to what Mitch has to share about his own journey writing this book, and then he'll be autographing copies. And we're going to have a live band, by the way, a Kensington band at 7:30 as you walk in. So that's this Friday. We really encourage you to come back for that. Also want to talk to you about what's coming up in a few weeks is one of our great traditions here, which is our Thanksgiving Eve service. And we have put together a wonderful service of some short teachings interspersed with lots of worship and an opportunity to respond in gratitude for all that God has done. So it's a great way to kick off the Thanksgiving holiday by coming here on Wednesday night. We hope that you'll come back for that. If you are new and you're in the building, by the way, we want you to know that we're so glad you're here. And we have something in the lobby that we call the Hub. It's hard to miss. It's orange. There are people with orange shirts like Terry here, and they would love to answer your questions. If you need more information about anything that you experienced today or questions about our church, we would love for you to stop by. And we have a special gift for you as well. Then the other thing to share that's coming up I'm really excited about is we have a new lead pastor here at Kensington. You guys, yes. His name is Adam Karshner, and if you've been paying attention, he taught a midweek in September. He taught a couple weeks ago, and we've believed that God has led Adam to be a part of our community here. And he's going to be formally introduced next week. Steve Andrews, the founding pastor of Kensington, is going to be here. We're going to bless him, commission him. We're going to have cake in the lobby, so if no other reason, come for cake after both services as we welcome Adam and his family. We're just so glad that God has provided for him. And I'm going to be around for a few months in transition, so you can't get rid of me that quickly or that easily, but it's just been such a blessing for me to be here this year. Well, what about that first song? Yeah, someone said they loved it. I don't know if you could resonate with the meaning of that song. Like, none of you would raise your hand and say, yeah, I'm insecure. Oh, you are? Wow, brave, proud people. I got my hand raised. You know, our insecurities, we tend to keep hidden. We don't usually sing about them. We don't usually broadcast them. But we all feel that. And one of the reasons we struggle with insecurity, I think, is because we're born into a world that compares and contrasts. We look at other people and they have gifts or abilities or looks or whatever that we don't have, and we look in the mirror and we just don't feel like we measure up. So beginning today and for the next 3 weeks in this series, Broken and Beautiful, that Shauna talked about, we're going to ask you to consider how maybe God sees you. Maybe all the other voices, all the other ideas, your life experiences have told you something about yourself that is just patently not true. That God has created something beautiful in you that is latent and it's buried there and it needs to be discovered. And how God wants to make that alive in us so that we can partner with God as co-creators, which is the idea we're going to look at today, co-creators with God to make a difference in this broken world. So really glad to be on this journey with you. But before we continue, I've got one last assignment for you. Stand up, say hi to somebody, give a warm welcome.
We live in a society that often throws away what is broken, with quick and sometimes cheaper replacements. It's the same with our own lives. We're quick to move on and disregard these issues and experiences that have shaped us. In doing this, we often miss how much more beautiful and powerful life can be if we embrace these moments. The journey of restoration can be slow and is unique to every individual and circumstance. God uses our broken moments to display His grace and beautiful restoration of not only our lives, but our futures.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look, and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with the spin, traveling through a world of my creation. What you'll see will defy explanation. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do, do it. Want to change the world? There's nothing to it. There is no place I know to compare to pure imagination. Living there, you'll be free if you truly want There's nothing to it.
Probably like you, the first time you heard that song was in the middle of a chocolate factory. And Gene Wilder sang, not near as well as Aaron sang it. But what was going on in that kind of silly moment in the middle of what we might call a silly movie? All these kids that had gotten the golden ticket, fought to get the golden ticket. Most of them were kids that needed to be in reform school of some sort. Thought that all their dreams were going to come true because they got the magic ticket, and here they got all this wonderful candy and chocolate. And the words of that song are encouraging them and encouraging us, if we're looking for something, to open our eyes and see, because it's right there. What has God done? What is God up to? What is he doing in this world? In all of its brokenness, you got to admit it's an enigmatic world, isn't it? In the same day, you can have unparalleled joy and sorrow. You can see great beauty and evil at the same time. What is going on? And that's what we're going to try to unpack in these 3 weeks. And we're going to ask you, I'm going to ask you today, all of you here or listening online, to use your imagination. Because it's not automatic that we'll do that. We have all these ideas and voices and things that tell us this is what is true and this is what is reality. And it's always going to be a mix of truth and error. And I'm really praying today that God, by his Spirit, would speak in my heart and in your heart to begin to dream and imagine something different than where you are and how you think about yourself right now. Before we jump into that, though, we're going to take just a moment to receive our offering. And we do this every week as an act of worship. It's a way of saying to God, we belong to you. Everything we are is yours. Everything we own is yours. And we release resources so that we can join God in what he's doing in the world. And so, again, those of you that are partnering with us, this moment is for you, and we really appreciate it. We make it so easy for you to give. You can leave a check on your way out today. You can go online and give there. We have an app. All the information is on your screens here and at home. And again, we just thank you so much for being on the journey with Kensington, Clinton Township. So, all right, so I have the ability to take this book and summarize a story in 4 words. This is the extreme Cliff Notes version of the Bible. There are 4 words that capture what all of this is about, and it takes us from the first book, Genesis, all the way to the last book, Revelation. The 4 words are creation, fall, redemption, and then new creation. And I did that on purpose because that's 5 words, just to see if you're paying attention. I used to call it restoration. I like new creation better. So it's 4 acts, 5 words, very easy to remember. I just want to talk us through that really quick because I want to give you context for where we're going to go today and the next 2 weeks. So just real quickly, this is now adding to those 4 words, just to get an idea of how we are to understand our world, understand ourselves, understand our role in this world and what God is up to. So creation, of course, very obviously Genesis, the first book of the Bible. He created everything, and at the end of that first chapter, we're told this: God saw all that he made, and it was very good. So you look up into the stars, you look at the changing colors, you look at a beautiful pond this morning, you look at the frost on your car before you scrape it. All the things in the world God made, it's just beautiful. That's creation. That's where we start. Then we take a big step here, and it's only 3 chapters into the book, into the Bible, Genesis chapter 3, what we call the fall. So God said, "You must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die." And she took some, and she ate it. That's Eve. And she gave it also to her husband Adam, who was with her, and he ate it. And I'm going to say more about that in just a little bit, but that decision to step away from God is what caused the brokenness that we see today. Because God created everything, and it was good, and he created human beings, and it was good, and he created them to live with him in paradise in this world, and it was all good. But at some point in the journey, the first humans decided to step away from God, and he said, don't do it because it's going to be bad, but they did it. So that's fall, that's brokenness. Now we move into the third act, the third word, which is redemption. And this is God stepping into his creation that's now broken in order to redeem it. And I tried to think about a verse that would capture this, and I couldn't find one better than this phrase from Philippians chapter 2. It's talking about Jesus, that Jesus humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on the cross. And so the cross represents how God feels about our brokenness. This right here. It began with creation and then the fall, and it's going to end, as we'll see, with new creation. But in the middle of this story of the Bible is God himself offering himself up to make everything right. That's redemption. And then the final act is new creation, and this is where it doesn't really begin. This is where the commencement happens, where God restores everything. In Revelation chapter 21, so now we've gone all the way to the last book, from Genesis now to Revelation, and we read these words, that God will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain. That's all the brokenness we see. For the old order of things has passed away. And then he who was seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. So that's the Bible story. Now, the fall happened 3 chapters in. Everything after Genesis chapter 3 is a story of what God is going to do within humanity to eventually redeem it and to bring about the new creation. And so the question that we're going to consider starting today and for the next few weeks as well is, what is our role in this? What is your role in this? What is my role in this story? And we're going to begin with creation. We're going to take a closer look at creation. We're going to look at the fall, Act 2, and then we're going to dabble in redemption all in the next, I have 23 minutes left. So that's a lot to accomplish today. So we need to get going. So the first words recorded in the Bible where God spoke to human beings is found in Genesis. And this is what he said. This is in verse 28 of the first chapter of the Bible. God said to the human beings, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground. Now, it's very easy to overlook the significance of this because it didn't have to be this way. But what God is telling us here is that he got it started by creating and saying it's good, but he left the job undone on purpose because he created human beings now to participate in the work that he was doing, that we become co-creators. That's a word I want you to think about today and during this week, that you and I are made to be co-creators. And he gave them 3 imperatives, 3 commands. He said, first, be fruitful and increase. And then number 2, he said, subdue the earth. And then third, he said, to rule. So he gave us human beings a job to do. He created us to create. And of all the things that we create, you know what the most astonishing is, I think? Is that we actually create people. I mean, it's so obvious it goes without saying, right? I'm looking at people that all got created by other people. And this has been going on forever in human history. But God could have done it differently. He could have kept making more people. He made the first one, so he's going to keep creating more people. But he gave the first human beings the responsibility. He said, be fruitful and increase and fill the earth. So he created us to create people. Isn't that amazing? I mean, come on, isn't that... See, we take it for granted. Yeah, okay, Craig. Okay, can we move on, please? I want you to stay in this moment of actually having the ability to create a person, that God designed it that way. What does that tell us about God? And if you've had a child, you know how amazing that is. If you haven't had a child, you've been around it, where you see that this new life comes into the world. Formed. It's absolutely incredible. I remember, I have 3 children. I remember my firstborn was born on Easter Sunday. And it was a glorious and awful day at the same time. So the awful part was this. We had to rush to the hospital. Turned out our son that was born was 9 pounds, 10 ounces. That's a pretty big baby. It's the first time. I'm afraid the baby's going to be born in the car. Rushing to the hospital. I get there. My wife checks in. I end up in the labor and delivery room. And I don't know if they still do Lamaze classes. But that's where they teach you, the husband, to be the coach and help her breathe through her contractions. So we went through all these classes, and now I'm in there, and her role is to deliver the baby, and my role is to be her coach. And so I'm standing next to her, and I can see on the monitor the contractions that are coming, and I'm so excited because this baby that we've been hidden all this time is going to come out, and we'll see him or her for the first time. And so my job is to help her get through it. So she's going into serious pain now, and I put my hands on her shoulder, and I tell her how to breathe, and she says, "Get your hands off me." So I stand back, and then I knew her mom and dad were out in the room waiting, so I said to Chris, who I hope is watching this right now because I still haven't gotten over this, 30-some years later. I said, I'm going to go tell your mom and dad what's going on. And she said, literally from her bed in the middle of a contraction, said, if you leave this room, I'll kill you. So that was a painful part. I realized she wanted me to just stay in the room and watch her suffer. So I did, longing for the days when the guys were out in another room smoking cigars or something. Amen. But that moment when Josh came out and they cleaned him up and they gave him to Chris, and then a few minutes later I held him in my hands and saw him for the first time. We created this. God gave us that ability to create. It's extraordinary. Co-creators with God of human beings. But it doesn't stop there. In fact, in Genesis 1, it tells us that God created mankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them male and female. We are made in the image of God, and theologians have thought long and hard for centuries about what does it mean to be image bearers of God, and it means many things. We're like him in our intellect and in our emotion and our ability to act, but we're like him in our ability to create. He made us to create. And when we create, we reflect the image of God. One of the first things he did, actually, he gave them a job to do. It says in Genesis chapter 2 that the Lord had formed out of the ground all the wild animals, all the birds in the sky. He brought them to the man to see what he would name them, and whatever the man called each living creature, that was his name. Right away, he's giving him a job. He didn't say, here's a list of all the animals so you can begin to learn the list. He said, I'm going to bring them to you, and you're going to give a name to them. There's a comedian by the name of Brad Stein who does a great routine on this. I'll just give you a little part of it, and I'm not a comedian, so I'm probably going to really blow this, but I'd have to tell you what Brad did was absolutely amazing. He said, Adam was like, oh, I got this job. So the first animal comes, and Adam looks at him, and he goes, hippopotamus. Lots of letters there. And then he brings another one, and it's like, rhinoceros. And then about 10 hours later, he's exhausted. He says, cow, yak. And then a fly goes by, and he goes, fly. Brad does it a lot better than me. But think about what that was saying to Adam. You get to name them. And I don't know if you caught the words in that verse. To me, it says, God brought the animals, and it says to see what he would name them. I see God almost curious, leaning in. What name is he going to come up with? Do you think God leans in to your life to see what you're going to come up with? Because I believe he does. And then it says, and whatever Adam named them, that was their name. And so God, respecting Adam's ability that he had given to him, his creativity, didn't critique it. No, I think you can do better than that. Let me suggest a few names for you. He endowed Adam with this ability to think and to create and to use his imagination as he has each of us. God created us in his image, and part of that image is to be co-creators with God. And look what we've done so far. I mean, I think about Adam and Eve looking at the physical world right in front of them, and there's so much they didn't know. They didn't know, for example, that a single red blood cell has 280 million copies of hemoglobin in one cell. How do we know that now? Adam didn't know that because we created a microscope. And then when they looked up in the sky to see the stars and what was in the heavens, these spots of lights, they didn't know what they were seeing. But we now know that light travels at a speed of 6 million miles in a single year on Earth, and that we now are looking into space hundreds of millions of light years. How do we know that? Because we created telescopes. When he said rule the earth and subdue it, we created plumbing, hot water heaters, which we enjoyed this morning, cars that we drove here. We've put people on Mars. We've sent spaceships, or moon. We sent spaceships to Mars. We have skyscrapers, movies, sports teams. We just keep creating and creating and creating. And I think God is looking in saying, oh, look at what they're doing now. We're doing it. We're creating. Because God made us to do that. But then things went wrong. So let's talk, that's creation. Let's talk a moment about fall. It's the hardest part of the story, I think, for us to understand. We have the story of a tree of life in the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and he said, don't eat from that. What was God doing in that? Why would he even set that there? And when Genesis doesn't say this, so don't go read this later, but this is how I imagine this. Perhaps they said, can we go over here 3 miles this direction and eat all that fruit and do all that? Yeah. Can we go over here and do all that? Yeah. It's all yours. All of it is yours. I'm generous. I'm giving you all of it. You can do all of it. Except that. Why would God do that? And I believe that the reason God did that is a way to illustrate that God wanted us in relationship, and he wasn't going to program us and force us to do it. There had to be the ability to choose. You know, one of the movies that represents this idea is the Stepford Wives, if you've seen either the old or the newer one, where the women got programmed to be exactly what the men would want them to be, like robots, and in the end it was very unsatisfying. Why? Because it's not a relationship. If you're programmed to love, you're not loving. You're just doing what you're programmed to do. So God gave them generously everything, but said, we're going to keep this aside, don't do it. And that would be their choice, true free will to choose that or not. But he warned them, if you do this, you're going to break covenant with me, and the world's going to go in a bad direction. And at some point, the temptation overcame them, and they had to see what it was, and they did it. And that resulted in all the brokenness that we experience today. And that's Genesis chapter 3. And all the 66 books in the Bible tell us now what God is doing in response to that choice, to the brokenness that we experience today. So they ate it. Now, we live in a broken world, but we still see the remnants of all the beauty, don't we? All the creativity. What happens up here? When I was listening to Aaron sing and saw the moon in the background and the way that everything was lit, we have amazing artists as part of our community that do this every week. We see the beauty, but it's in the midst of brokenness. We encounter both every day. So what are we to do about that? What is our role in the midst of the world that we actually find ourselves in? This is the story we find ourselves in. We are in the story of creation and fall and redemption and eventual new creation. And we have our one season in all of history to live. All of us right now are alive in this time. And God is calling us to be a part of what he's doing because he co-created us. He created us to co-create in a perfect world, and that co-creation goes on in a broken world. And as we'll see a little bit today and more next week when Adam teaches, and then the following week, is that we are co-creators working with God in the redemption story. That we bring all that we have, all that we are, all of our abilities, our gifts, our creativity, all of that to bear on the story of God, the beautiful gospel, the story, the good news of God's redemption, that God in our brokenness has not turned his back on us, he's not turned away from us, he has not cast us aside, he's not set us aside, he's not said it's too late for you. He's involved in the work of redemption and eventually the work of new creation. And I want to bear this out in an interesting story we find in the book of Exodus. It's interesting to me at least, I hope it is to you. We all know Moses, right? Yeah, you all know Moses? Anybody name your child Moses, by the way? I was thinking about that today. I don't think I've ever met a Moses. And it's one of the most known names in the book of the Bible. But do you know the name of Bezalel and Oholiab? Do you know those names? Anybody have kids named that? See, we don't even know these names, and yet they do something really, really critical in this story that we see in Exodus chapter 31. So it's a little bit of a long passage. It'll be up on the screen. I just want to read this to you. Before I do that, though, what's going on here is Moses had led Israel out of slavery in Egypt on their way to the promised land. They're now out wandering around in the wilderness, and God needs to be present with them, and so he asks them to build a tabernacle. Now, if you're Moses, everybody in those 1 million+ people that are out there, everybody knows the name of Moses. So if you're talking about insecurity, if you're not Moses, you're nobody. You're not the big guy. Moses is the big guy. And yet when God wants a tabernacle to be built, which is basically a portable church that's going to move with them as they go, and the presence of God's going to be in this tabernacle, he doesn't say to Moses, I want you to not only lead the people, I want you to build this. He says, hey, I've got a couple guys in mind for this job. Guys that I created in my image. And so this is what we're told happens. The Lord said to Moses, see, I have chosen Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and I have filled him, please notice these words, I have filled him with the Spirit of God and wisdom, with understanding, with knowledge, not to preach a sermon or lead the people. Look at what it says.
with all kinds of skills to make artistic designs for work in gold, silver, bronze, to cut and set stones, to work in wood, and to engage in all kinds of crafts. Those of you that do crafts, it's biblical. Moreover, I've appointed Oholiab, son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, to help him. Also, I have given ability to all the skilled workers to make everything I've commanded you. Who gave them the ability? God did. The tent of meeting, the ark of the covenant, the law with the atonement cover on it, and all the other furnishings of the tent, and the table and its articles, the pure gold lampstand, all of its accessories, the altar of incense, the altar of burnt offerings, and all of its utensils, the basin with its stand, and also the woven garments, both the sacred garments. Those of you that like to sew, it's biblical. For Aaron the priest, and the garments for his sons when they serve as priests, and the anointing oil and fragrant incense for the holy place, they are to make them just as I commanded you. Not you, Moses. I did not give you that ability. You do what I gave you the ability to do, but you're going to need other people to do my work. And again, it was said these men were filled with the Holy Spirit that have the skill and wisdom and discernment and understanding, the ability to do that. And what we have done, unfortunately, is we have bifurcated life and said there's the spiritual or sacred, and there's what we might call the secular. There's the God stuff and everything else that's not the God stuff. And what this passage tells us is that it's all God stuff. It's all God stuff. If you're a great carpenter and you can build stuff, that's God's Spirit in you. If you're an artist that can paint stuff, or maybe you can paint a house, God gave you that ability. If you're a chef, that's the Holy Spirit in you. That's you as one who bears the image of God. If you can solve a complex spreadsheet, which I can't do at all, I need to come to you. You're skilled in that. And on and on and on. The list goes on. You're a teacher. You're in the medical field. You're a mechanic. All of that is sacred. All of that is us filling the mandate to go into the world and subdue it and rule over it and to make stuff. It's all part of God. All of it. And we do a great disservice when we fail to understand that. We do that disservice to ourselves and to each other. And I believe God right now is looking across this auditorium at all the faces I see, and he's looking at you with curiosity because he knows that there's more in you for you to do. And he's wondering, what are you going to do with that? That thing that I gave you, that maybe you despise, maybe you don't think it's of value. Maybe it's not the big thing that everybody notices. You know, there was a movie that I liked years ago, and I watch it now, and it's like movies moved so slow back then. I fall asleep watching this movie, but it's called The Chariots of Fire, and it's about a man by the name of Eric Liddell who lived in Scotland, and he was a runner. He was also called to be a missionary in China. And the story's about this tug in his heart. It's time to go to China and make the good news known there, but he was a fast runner, and he made the Olympic team. And at one point in the movie, there's a dialogue with his sister who's saying, why are you wasting your time running and trying to get a medal that just perishes when you could go to China and do eternal good? And here's his response to his sister. He says, I know God made me for China. I know he made me for China. But God also made me fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure. Do you feel this pleasure? When you're out on a boat sailing in the middle of Lake St. Clair? You know, when you're out building that back deck and you're getting it just right, and you stand back and look at it, do you feel God's pleasure at what you made skillfully and wonderfully? Do you feel that? There's a scripture in the Psalms that we reference quite a bit. And the psalm writer says that you created me in my inmost being. The Creator created you. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. I never noticed that till this time, but he's kind of bragging on himself. He says, everything you made is wonderful, and you made me, so logic tells you I'm wonderful. But it's true. God delights in each of us. Yeah, I know we all have stuff. I've got stuff. I'm a work in progress. But he deeply loves me. And he's given me things to do in this earth. And he has for each one of you. Do you see that? Can you embrace that? I wonder as I look around this room, I don't know most of you, what untapped potential, what creativity, what skill, what passion, what you're going to do, what's yet for you to do in your life to contribute to the work that God is doing as a co-creator. I have a friend, actually it's a relative that lives not too far from here, and he absolutely loves, he's a retired dentist, his name is Dave, he loves to garden now. And I'm astonished by this. I'm going to show you a couple pictures. You need to look at this. This is on his property, and here's another one. I asked him to send pictures, and he sent me like 20, and I can only show you 2. But as I looked at them, I said, tell me, can you have any idea how many plants? He has over 1,200 plants on his property, and he's retired, he has time, and he creates this, and it creates beauty in their neighborhood. Like the neighbors, everybody looks at the beauty, and I thought, you give me 1,200 plants, I'm going to create a mess, right? I have no idea how to do this and how to arrange colors together and different kind of plants, and some are annuals, and some have to be planted every year, and maybe that's what that even means. See, I don't even know what the terms mean. I don't have that ability, but someone does, and he's bringing beauty into the world. There's someone right in our own congregation, they don't know I'm going to do this, but they bought an old trailer, vintage trailer that was beat up in an awful shape. It was just ugly, beyond repair. And they restored it over a period of 2 years. And I just have one picture from the inside. You have to see this. You can't imagine what it looked like before they started. I should have gotten a before and after picture. But they sent me a video, and all the woodwork and the handiwork and the beautiful stain that they put on it, and just how it's arranged. It's like, I want to steal this trailer. Although there's no place in New York for me to put it. But I mean, if we had the time, I could have asked all of you to submit something that you do. And you might think it's boring or not significant. And I want you to hear me say it's all significant, because God made you to be you, and the abilities and skills and gifts and passions and ideas that you have are from Him. Whether it's being done in a church, or it's being done at General Motors, or it's being done wherever, it doesn't matter. This is all part of God's image in you. There's only one you, and you've been designed by God to do the work that He has created you to do. Now, as we move forward in the next few weeks, the world is broken, and it's in need of redemption, in need of final, full restoration. And all of this contributes to that in ways that maybe are not always evident. Like, people think what I'm doing right now is the real redemptive work of God. Yeah, it's a part of it, but it's all part of it. Everything that we do, everything that we bring to the table that God has given to us is all part of God's work in the world. And He delights in it. He smiles. He leans in, just like Adam naming the animals. And God saw it, and it was good. And the thing I wanted to do as we start this 3-week series today is to challenge you to embrace who you are, to use your imagination, and to dream and believe and to act on how God has created you. When we go into the redemption story, which is centered in the person of Jesus, God did not say, and consider this now, He did not say, I'm going to send an emissary into the world, or a king who's just going to make it all happen. He humbled Himself and came in as a human being, lived among us, and then when it came time for mission, 30 years into it, He was building tables and chairs. He was a carpenter. Skill, gift, ability, passion. And then 30 years into this, He now steps out into the public eye to say, I have a message for you. But He didn't get a bullhorn, a PA system. He didn't do it alone. He did this. We read this in Luke chapter 6. One of those days, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray, and He spent the night praying to God. And then when morning came, He called His disciples to Him and chose 12 of them, whom He also designated apostles. And if you know anything about this story, He didn't choose the brightest and the best, but He saw something in them. I think during that night of prayer with the Father, with this important decision, He's going to recruit 12 men to join Him in the redemptive work. If this was today, He might have chosen you. None of them felt qualified. Probably nobody around them felt they were qualified. They were young men. They were rough men, uneducated men largely. And yet God picked 12 men to be the key to everything, because when Jesus would die and come back from the dead and he would ascend to heaven, he said, I'm sending you now. This is now your mission. Man, the risk that would seem to us. God, really? You're going to give this job, this important, most important of all of human history, this job to these men? And the answer is yes. So what does that tell you about God? What does that tell you about you? And in these closing moments, what I'd like you to do, maybe you would just be willing to close your eyes, because I want you to use your imagination for just a moment. God is present with us in this moment, in this room. I believe that with all my heart. He can look into your life, into your soul, into your mind, into your insecurities, into your doubts, and see everything that's there. And yet, with all of that, what he feels is delight, because he made you. Do you believe that you are fearfully and wonderfully made? What does he see? What do you see? What latent or hidden talent or skill or passion is there? Can you hear him say to you, come, be with me? We have work to do. What do you think when you look inside yourself, setting aside the brokenness and the self-criticism, all the other voices? What's in you? What are you good at? What are you passionate about? What skill is in you, whether it's developed or not? What might be inside of you that needs to be called out? How has the Creator designed you to be a co-creator with him? How might God use your skills, gifts, abilities, all of which are evidence of the likeness of God and the evidence of God's Spirit in you, to bring about healing in our broken world, to bring about redemption? And God, all of these are just words unless they're being spoken to our hearts by your Spirit. And so that's what I pray in these closing moments, as through words and music we are drawn to you, that we would hear your voice speaking into our lives, calling us out to be co-creators with you. In your name, amen.
God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of life. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship, so will I can see your heart in everything you made. worship so alive. If the mountains bow and rivers so alive. If the oceans roar, your greatness so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. If the wind goes where you stand, and so will I. If the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. If the sun of all our praise is still fall shine, then we'll sing again 100 billion times. Oh, God of salvation, you chased down my heart through all of my failure and pride. On a hill you created, the light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Where you lost your life so I can find it here. If you left the grave behind you, so will I could see your heart in everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art called love. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I could see your heart a billion different ways. Every precious one, a child you died to save. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I. Like you would again 100 billion times. But what measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
And we want to leave you today with an encouraging word, understanding that as we step into this identity, knowing that we're co-creators, that God is for you, He's not against you, He knows who you are, and He says that you're chosen. And so we want to invite you into this last moment to stand and worship with us.
Who am I that the highest King would welcome me? I was lost, but He brought me into His love for me. Yes, His love for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, it's free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free as He has ransomed me, His grace runs deep. While
Oh my gosh. We sang it like we believed it. Do you believe that? Okay, I've got an assignment for you this week. I want you to take a question with you. Who gets to say who you are? God gets to say who you are. So all those other voices need to be quieted. God says who you are. He says you are fearfully and wonderfully made. He said you are loved by me. I have set you free. And we're going to press into this more in the next 2 weeks, but I want you to go with the confidence that in spite of all the insecurities you may have brought in here today, and they're going to keep talking to you, let his voice be the voice you hear. Let it be the voice that shapes you this week, shapes your mental life, your emotional life, the choices that we make. Let him shape us this week because he is for us. Hey, as you leave, I just one final exhortation. Thanksgiving, as we mentioned, is coming up, and we're about halfway to our goal. So if you've been thinking about doing the $50 to buy a basket to bless a family, but you're one of those procrastinators like me because I haven't done it yet, can we do that this week and get that taken care of? Let's bless our community with love this Thanksgiving, okay? Have a great week, and we will see you back here next Sunday.